So, as we all know, there's been some legendary groups or factions in anime history. You can see it in our logo, inspired by a legendary group. So, I wanted to get you guys together just to talk about who are, maybe in your opinion, who's the best group in anime history. And I know that's putting you on the spot, but faction, a group that decided to assemble themselves, give themselves a title. Like, who do you think is the best group in anime history, Smoke, and why?
Mm, do I go with them? I think I have to. Right
Mm.
here. When you see that red cloud, you
Hmm.
already know.
Legendary.
Um, Real
Yeah.
legendary. And one thing I was thinking about really right now, right before we started recording, we've never seen that group fight as a whole. We've only
Hmm.
seen duos dip off. And I was also thinking a lot of them, I would say six, maybe seven of them, they have all of them have a trump card. And if you're not really equipped or expecting it, Sasori had a crazy trump card that no one was expecting.
Hmm.
That like a lot of them just got done in by plot. Sasori had the himself as the puppet.
Hmm.
No one expected that. Deidara had the self destruct. No one expected that. Kakuzu had the um, people didn't know he had the five hearts. Wasn't expecting that. Itachi kind of had a trump card that Sasuke was not expecting when they fought when he busts out the Susanoo. Kisame had his trump card when he fought Guy and he busts out the water with the actual sharks. And like it's just that group is different. Like they're real different.
Yeah. So I had the Akatsuki, right? I was thinking about them, but I had them like as possibly they were top three for me. They were top three for me. But I decided to go in a different direction, and I'll tell you why. So I went with the Phantom Troop. I went with the Phantom Troop, and the reason why I went with the Phantom Troop opposed to the Akatsuki is so, like you said, we always see them in duos. So we always see the Akatsuki in duos, right? Think about it, like Pain and Konan, Tachi Kisame, Data Sasori. So they're always in duos, right? But a lot of them on their own, because they had such heavy characters, were able to like hold their own. Like Obito could be on screen by himself, Pain can be on screen by himself, Itachi could be on screen by himself. Now when it comes to the Phantom Troop, why I think they're the best group is because I think you need them as a group to have the impact, right? They're not just good solo characters that you just threw together. I think they're iconic as a group. Yes, Crollo can hold his own. Hisoka, which is kind of someone infiltrating the group for the wrong reasons, but the rest of them, like, they have to be the troop. You know what I'm saying?
Phaeton maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even know if Phaeton is to that extent. You know what I mean? But
Right.
but I think that's why it's so good. Like with a group, we want them to actually be a unit. You know what I mean? So I that's why I went the direction of the Phantom Troop. I think of the Chimera Ant arc when Crollo wasn't there, right? It was still pretty entertaining because it was the group of them, their banter with one another, and they really care for one another, right? So even though they're like mercenaries in a sense, they kill, they steal, the way they were formed was because they really, most of them grew up in Meteor City, right? With really nothing. All they really had was each other. They was brought together by the silliest of things. Crollo getting a tape with like a knockoff Power Rangers, you know what I'm saying? Them dubbing it together, and they really built that camaraderie and that friendship, you know what I'm saying? So for me, like that group right there is just the most iconic, not the most iconic, just the best for me. Like when they just symbolize what it means to be a group, in my opinion.
Okay.
How
Okay.
about you, Mo?
So for me, I'm gonna go with the Gote 13.
Mm,
Right? Because when you think about groups or factions, generally, I think most people think about the anti-villains, right? The characters that oppose the heroes
mm-hmm,
to some degree. But I think the Gote 13, right? And we see all factions, even on the good side, right? When we're talking about like Fairy Tail, My Hero Academia, the heroes, etc. But I think the Gote 13 from their gear, right? The white and black is
mm-hmm,
dope. And I feel like how they're structured, right? From an organizational standpoint and in their pursuit to kind of enforce order, right? You just see them kind of operate not necessarily in a cohesive unit, because you see these captains, right? These captain level threats, they kind of operate differently. You have, you know, Kurotsuchi, the researcher, right?
Mhm.
He kind of goes and does his own research, which is probably unethical, but he kind of goes and does his own thing. You got Hitsugaya, which is many people's favorite, right? Byakugan, which is, you know, many people's favorite as well. And then they swap as the story progressed, right? Because we've seen Aizen. Aizen was one of the captains, of course. Then you have the Arrancar arc where he's the main villain, and then he gets replaced. And I feel like each leader or each domain under the captain kind of specialize in a certain area, right? So I feel like the Gotei 13 for sure, I feel like it's probably the best group in terms of aesthetics, you know, their backstory, the lore, especially before the Gotei 13 that we see, right? We're talking about Yamamoto during his days when he was like a ruthless, pragmatic leader with his old members, where they went ahead and wiped out the Quincy's,
like the old Kenpachi.
yeah, and then the old Kenpachi that we know that ends up being revealed, right? In the story. So I feel like the Gotei 13 for sure, when you're talking about lore, backstory, when you're talking about aesthetics, when you're talking about impact of the story and the consistent narrative, I think they're the best group.
So let me ask you this. Let me throw a counter question, because you said most people usually go for like anti-heroes. I wouldn't say the Gotei 13 is anti-heroes, but I do think there's some corruption and some negativity amongst the group. Do you think to get to the ranks of maybe an elite group, there has to, like, it can't be all positive. It has to be something negative in there to entice the audience? Or do you think a strictly all just positive, straightforward, politically correct group could be a top tier group? And do you see the Gotei 13 that way, or do you kind of understand what I mean by, you know, there's some corruption, there's some hidden agendas there, there's some bad stuff going on in there?
So this is a good point, right? So usually, of course, people always we always favor the heroes, but when you look at anime, the most popular characters, or usually in the top 3, there's gonna be, you know, some corrupt characters, right? So you bring up a good point, because I do feel like with the Gotei 13, there is some level of corruption, but not in the sense of it's underlying, right? Because we've seen certain characters, right, that may have, like Ichigo, right, in the first arc when he kind of goes in to save Rukia, they're deemed as or viewed as villains, right? From Ichigo's perspective. But in the totality of the story, they are heroes. But you have some characters that are evil that were a part of the Gotei 13. That's where the corruption kind of starts. And we're not even talking about like the Chamber of Commerce, like the chamber within the Soul Society. And then even you know, and I don't want to get into the 1,000-Year Blood War arc, right? With you know, some plans to kind of use Ichigo as the Soul King. So there's some form of corruption which goes deeper. So you're absolutely right. I feel like there has to be some polarizing effect. It can't just be all good, you know. So I saw, yeah.
And in the Spoken Year case, I feel like the Akatsuki are, like, once you get deeper into the story, you realize they're the perfect anti-heroes, right? Yes, they're set out to be like the bad guys, but we know in Naruto, everybody, all in all, for the most part, except Orochimaru and maybe, I don't know, maybe Kabuto.
Itachi.
Like, I feel like they all want peace in some regard. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
they all thought they were doing their own thing.
Right.
Pain
Right.
gave
Right.
one of the most legendary speeches of all time.
Yeah.
When he told Naruto, he was like, "What makes your story different than mine? What makes your pain different than mine?" When he was like, "What about
that's
about
fact.
my village, my friends, my people?"
Yeah,
that's facts.
Know, he was
And
like,
I don't mean to. I'm not looking to change your opinion. I'm just asking questions here. But now, when you say Pain gave one of the most legendary speeches of all time, do you think the lack of what you mentioned, them performing as a total group, do you think that holds them back at all, or do you think their status is already so legendary it doesn't even matter?
I think that they're just such a legendary group because you see the cloud
Oh yeah.
everywhere. Like the cloud is everywhere, like literally everywhere. That's the only reason why I spoke about them or
I
bring
think
them up.
design, they're number one.
Yeah, in terms of popularity, they're number one.
Yeah.
In terms of popularity, they're definitely number one.
That's the only reason I gave it to them, because I got like a list of honorable mentions that I could go through right now.
Yeah. No, I feel that, because like I said, I was really torn because I was ready to go Akatsuki, because if you know me and you know me well, you know Pain is my favorite character in an entire show, one of my favorite people in anime, period, from everything. But it's the design, it's the speech, it's the it's the voice. You know, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
people don't have a good dubbed voice. I think his dubbed voice is amazing. You know what
The
I'm saying?
music.
So the music is everything about Pain, how menacing he is. You know what I mean? So I was really ready to go that direction, but I'm like, man, same kind of things with Itachi, you know what I'm saying? But I'm like, it's the individuals opposed to like what I was saying with the Phantom Troop. And that York New City arc is like, I mean, Krollo has that moment, you know, where he's fighting the Zoldycks on his own, like that's impressive. But it's when he's on top of the building, like he's, you know, orchestrating the whole thing, and they're just causing chaos. You know what I mean? Like that's like the troop right there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then even their whole motive, like, yo, even without the head of the spider, you keep going. Like I feel like that defines a group right there. You know what I mean?
Got you. So I got a question for y'all, right? In terms of their respective universe and their respective story, do you feel like the group, like which group do you feel like played the biggest role in moving the needle in the story
Of these three groups,
of these three groups?
good. Moving the needle of the story. Well, I'll say this: the Phantom Troop's out.
Yeah, the Phantom Troops might be out.
The Phantom Troop,
because I'm thinking even with them, you can kind of.
Yeah, but the only reason is because they were really there for Kurapika, and once he got sidelined, they got sidelined. So it was like, okay, what happened to them? You know,
right. They just didn't get enough time. And then I don't know if you guys know though, but like there was some chapter. There's you know, the most recent chapters was kind of about their background when they were kids and when they got together
and why they became the Phantom Troop.
Yeah, and then you know there's some speculation about when Krollo flipped and said, we got to go down this path. So you know we're getting a little bit more on them, and I hope we continue to get more on them. But going back to this on like which group moved the needle more, I guess I'm prone to say. Wait. I'm leaning Akatsuki, but I have to ask you a question.
Go ahead.
Does Aizen still count as Gotei 13 since he separated himself? Because if he does, then I will go to Gotei 13 because Aizen single-handedly becomes
right. Because this the complicated part. Because Aizen, when he's introduced as a captain in the Gotei 13. So he plays a role in the Gotei 13 in shifting the story. So you know, so you have him, so that by default it's like, dang, you have this major villain in the Ronka arc, right? But also with the Akatsuki, it's so tough because they are the ones that's going and collecting these tailed beasts, right? You have characters that single-handedly played a huge domino effect in the story with Itachi alone, right? With him, you know, using Obito to kind of wipe out the Uchiha clan, which subsequently allowed Sasuke to become who he is in the story. And not only that, right, it's impacted with some of the, you know, leaders in the other villages, right, especially. So it kind of just leaves this whole domino effect. So the Akatsuki in and of itself, and then when we're talking about Akatsuki, we also got to include Madara in that equation. So
but that's now that's my question. I don't necessarily include Madara in the Akatsuki.
Okay, I think he's an Akatsuki. Okay, I see why you wouldn't include. I think he's a part of the Akatsuki. I think he's
technicalities you would have to not
because he's like a stakeholder, like the behind the scenes stakeholder. Because without
Obito,
you have Obito there, right? Like Obito,
it wasn't Obito as the Akatsuki member. Everybody was thinking it was Madara the whole time because he played the role of Madara. He didn't get exposed as Obito till the war arc when Madara came back, and then they were like, "Wait, okay, if this is Madara, then who's that under the mask?"
Some people knew, right? Like Kisame knew. I'm prone to believe if Konan knew, Pain knew. You know what I mean?
I think they figured it out later.
Yeah, they figured it out.
They knew. Kisame knew because
he outright told them,
and he made him take the mask off. Exactly. Well, in the manga, at least. In the manga, he makes him take the mask off.
So I have
fully.
That's a tough one, right? Because I feel like about half of them knew. But I don't know, like the Pain and Konan's debatable. Like I said, I feel like they knew, because if Konan knew, it's just hard for me to believe that Pain
Itachi thought it was Madara.
Okay, Itachi thought it was Madara. Okay, I thought Itachi had figured it out.
He told Sasuke when he had the fight, when Sasuke stabbed him in the back when he was sitting in the chair, he was like Madara Uchiha, and that's when Sasuke was like,
okay,
and then then the Genjutsu broke.
Exactly. So I guess Madara, the true Madara, is like they probably didn't have that correlation between Obito, right, and Madara, right, as being two separate beings. But nevertheless, let's say we do include Madara, right, as the Akatsuki, just for the sake of this. Does that change your on who you pick as
So
the
so here's why I'm still going to go to 13
okay?
because let's say we're including Aizen, which I'm going to. Aizen is just there's nothing left to say but Aizen's Aizen, right?
Okay.
But the Gote 13, then you have Yamamoto and his whole backstory with the Quincy and how big that is for the story itself and
Yeah.
where it leads to. So I think that altogether is going to slightly edge out the because and just think about moving the needle too. Like you got to think about what they did, bringing Rukia back, even getting Ichigo to pull up to the Soul Society and everything. That's so pivotal to the story as well. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So it's tough. The Madara arguments are really good one, but I'm gonna go slightly with the Gote 13.
Okay. What you think?
The needle.
I would think it would be the Akatsuki, even just because I don't have the knowledge on Bleach like you guys do, and two because the Akatsuki were feeding their whole purpose because Obito kind of mind snaked them too, like played mind games with them. He made them switch their whole concept of what their role was or what their organization was about. He made them switch it up once Nagato took over as the leader. He changed it from whatever Yahiko wanted to the infinite Tsukuyomi. So that was their goal still, regardless. Their goal was to feed the ghetto statue tail beast by tail beast by tail beast so they can activate the infinite Tsukuyomi because they thought that was going to bring peace, even if it wasn't what like Madara's end game plan was too. Like, of course it was because he's the one that fed it to Obito, which Obito fed it into them. So I would say would be the Akatsuki because they're still the ones that the end game was fighting the ghetto statue, fighting Madara. Madara got snaked by Black Zetsu. Black Zetsu was actually a member of the Akatsuki too.
Yeah, and
so
then
I would go the Akatsuki because the whole end story was fighting Kaguya, and Zetsu technically is the will of Kaguya, so he was Kaguya in a sense.
Okay. Yeah, and then I'm gonna wrap up with this, and I'm gonna come back to the Phantom Troop, and the reason why I'm gonna say the Phantom Troop is the best group is the cherry on the top. They give you what everybody wants the most. They want to see the two strongest people in the group fight one another, and the Phantom Troop gives you that.
Okay, that's a good one. That's definitely a good one.
I like that. I like that argument.
Yeah, no one to close out.
Yeah, but definitely jump in the comment section. Tell us what do you think are some of the best groups in anime history. Maybe the most, or if you got a list of a few you can't decipher through, go ahead and drop them all. So make sure you like, comment, and subscribe.